Welcome back for week 4. So far, we've learned how faith frees us from simply doing the right thing. And how the right thing actually is just believing that Jesus is who he says he is. And really then allowing that to continue to grow our belief in God's goodness and Jesus' sacrifice for us. We're just living in that, right? To kind of set the stage. This is the standard that Paul's setting for us now.
When it comes to our relationship with God, it's faith.
Yes. Perfect. And so as we're moving ahead here, we're really zeroing in on this idea of what it means to be children of God's promise. As a result of that. As we've learned that. And so to do that, Paul actually takes us back in time again. Talked about Abraham. Now we're moving into a story adjacent to that in the Old Testament that can seem like probably pretty odd at first glance for us. Like, why is he going here? And so because it was written for us, not written to us, we're going to go back. We're going to go to Galatians 4:21 through 23. So if you grab your Bibles, we're going to start right there. So Galatians 4:21 says, "Tell me, you who want to be under the law, are you not aware of what the law says? For it's written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by the slave woman and the other by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born according to the flesh, but his son by the free woman was born as a result of a divine promise." So there's probably some things that we can pick up here a little bit based on last week and some of the things we talked about. But could you unpack for us why we're getting this story of a slave woman and a free woman and what Paul's getting at here?
Yeah. So we saw last week that when Paul was talking about and contrasting a life and a relationship with God that's based on faith versus a life and a relationship with God that's based on the law, he went back to Abraham. He went back to a promise that God made to Abraham. And now in chapter 4, he unpacks the nature of that promise. And in fact, he also unpacks what it was like for Abraham to have faith in that promise. And we get in chapter 4, Abraham first didn't have faith. And so the story in Genesis that he's kind of flying over here in Galatians is this: God makes this promise to Abraham that he's going to be the father of many nations, okay, as numerous as the stars in the sky or sand on the beach. And problem is that Abraham and his wife Sarah were like way past childbearing years in age. And so God makes this promise, and Abraham believes him, and then it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen. And Abraham and Sarah decide, you know what? We can make this happen. We can do this. We can, right?
That we word sneaks its way in.
Yep. And the false gospels, the different gospels always start with we. The good gospels, the authentic gospel always starts with God, right? Always starts with what he did. And so in the story, Sarah takes her maidservant, her slave, a woman named Hagar, and works out a deal with Hagar for her to sleep with Abraham in the hopes that they'll conceive, and then take that child as their own, and this will be the child of promise. And as we see in the story, that's not what God promised, nor is it how he fulfilled his promise. So he takes care of Hagar and her son Ishmael, but then eventually gives Sarah a son. Sarah and Abraham a son, someone they call Isaac, and Abraham has Isaac, and Isaac has Jacob, who God renames Israel, and Israel has 12 sons, one of whom is Judah, and from Judah comes Jesus. And here's the promise fulfilled.
That through line.
But it was, do you believe that I'm going to do what I'm going to say I'm going to do, or do you feel like you have to do it on your own? And that's the contrast he's making. It's an allegorical contrast, and what we mean by that is, he's kind of seeing in an Old Testament story layers of meaning that are true. It's just not the original intent of the story necessarily.
Yeah. Well captured. What's amazing is that they don't follow through on what God asked them to just believe. They take matters into their own hands.
That's right.
And I think what's amazing, even in this story, and yet God is still faithful. In that, like, hey, you really went your own way, and here's still this gift.
He doesn't go back to Abraham. That's a really good point. He doesn't go back to Abraham and says, well, because you screwed it up, I'm not going to fulfill my promise anymore. Because why? Well, because God fulfilling his promises always, always, always depends on God's faithfulness to his own promise before it depends on our faithfulness to him.
Isn't that great?
It's such good news.
That's really good. And you hinted this too, but he still takes care of Ishmael too. Like God is so good and say, hey, in the midst of all of these things, I'm still going to be faithful. I'm still going to show up. And I think it's worth noting too, like there's still consequences
there are
as a result of that, right?
Yeah.
You just give us a snapshot a little bit. You've got Ishmael and you've got Isaac, and like there's some things that happen that ultimately work in the story. But I mean, there's consequences when we take matters into our own hands.
Yeah, and it's one of those stories in Genesis that you can kind of see reverberate now down even today. We've got Middle Eastern people who are Jewish people, and we've got Middle Eastern people who are non-Jewish and just Arabic, and really the division kind of starts even all the way back then. Where the descendants of Ishmael end up being tribes, and the descendants of Abraham end up being tribes, and these tribes are still at war today.
Wow. Yeah, kind of puts things in perspective. Like that. Yeah, you can't imagine the ripple of when we say
when we decide right that we're gonna do for God what only God can do. It's never good.
Never good. Yeah. So, as we go into this and Paul continues writing, he starts to talk about this idea of like children of the promise. We're children of the free woman. It really sounds like, what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a great phrase. So you really can go like, okay,
so
what are we talking about here?
One of the dominant metaphors that the entire Bible uses to describe our relationship with God is father and son, or father and daughter, a father and a child, right? So you've got 2 kids?
I do.
How old are your kids?
They are 2.5 and 5 months.
And we were actually just talking about the 2.5-year-old. You guys, you and Marcy are entering into just one of the biggest gifts I think that God gives us as parents, and that is to teach our children how to go to the bathroom not in a diaper.
Yeah.
It's such a fun thing.
What a gift that we get to adventure into.
So you guys are coming up on that, right?
Yeah, like whether we like it or not, it's like, oh, we need to do that.
Okay, so the expectation that you guys have when you go teach your daughter this, okay, do you expect her to get it right the very first time? Yes. You do? No, very good.
No,
not
at
all.
all.
Have high standards, man. Let me know how that works out for you.
Exactly. Set myself up. No, it's going to be a disaster, I'm sure.
That's
right.
We
have to figure it out.
That's right. Do you think she's heading into that with an expectation of any kind?
No.
She
has no idea what's headed her way.
This is what it means to be a child. Yeah. You don't have expectations really at all for yourself. Yeah. Your world exists. It exists as safe and clean and fun and cared for. Your world as a child exists because you have good parents. Yeah. And you don't even think about it.
Yeah, they have a lot of faith.
That's right.
In us, right? Like, wow.
And they probably wouldn't even call it faith because that's just how they live. They just live in relationship with you and your wife. Yes. Right. When scripture talks about children of the promise, in fact, even in if you look at verse 6 in chapter 4, because you are his sons and daughters, God sent his spirit, the spirit of his son, into our hearts, the spirit who calls out, Abba, Father, which is kind of a term of endearment. It's like dad, In our hearts, we don't revere God as this sovereign, far away, all-powerful being, even though he is, right? In our hearts, he's dad. And that's how it ought to be.
Yeah.
We're never in danger of assuming upon God's grace because there's just no bottom to it. In the same way that your kids couldn't assume upon the two of you yet. Right? Because they're just so small, and we're forever just these small little kids in God's family. And that's what it means to be children of the promise. It's just, you just kind of rely and depend on the goodness of God. Yeah. And that's how it ought to be.
Yeah. It's all about resting in that, right? I'm working on believing, and then I get to rest in it. And I've at least found in my life that over time, the Holy Spirit will just continue to I don't know, kind of paint that picture for me. It's like, oh, there's a lot of ways that I believe this and then don't believe this. And it seems like the more that I can continue to come back to that and be reminded of that, more color gets added to that picture.
What's so, I think, not very counterintuitive to us, and and this is where the parenting metaphor kind of breaks down,
Mhm.
is eventually, you hope that your daughter does not need your help and to go to the bathroom, right? Like there's
That
something,
would be great.
there's a problem here if it extends, right? So as in a parent-child relationship, the child grows independent.
Yeah.
We want to grow up in a way that we don't eventually need our mom or our dad, right? It's exactly the opposite in our relationship with God. We want to grow deeper into our dependence on our Father. Deeper. We want to be more and more childlike with him. We want to be more and more naive, honestly.
Yeah.
But specifically when it comes to his love, his grace, his feelings toward us, we should grow more and more and more secure in that relationship. More childlike, not less.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we jump into discussion about Sarah and Hagar and kind of how this plays out as children of God, what do you want to make sure we catch here? Anything where we want to make sure we don't leave off the table here as Paul draws us back into this example?
Yeah. So, like even let's just recognize that 2025 is obviously different than, 80, 50 or 60, whenever this was written.
Yeah.
And then certainly different than BC 1500 or 1800 when the events of like Hagar and Sarah and Abraham.
A little bit of a gap. Yeah. Bridged across.
And all of those work. And so, you go, some of the language here is kind of arresting, it's the word slaves even. And certainly in our context, I mean, like the things that connotates, is just arresting. And you have to continue to discipline yourself to kind of go, okay, I've got to get back to what this was trying to say. And he's in verse 24, he goes, these things are being taken figuratively. Okay, so this is not one of these examples in the Bible where, he's just trying, they don't really care about slavery, No. He's taking an Old Testament story, he's using it figuratively to illustrate something that he's been kind of building a case for through Galatians. And I think if you understand it in that context, you'll grab onto what he's trying to say there.
Yeah, that's great. So without further ado, we're going to send you to some more discussion. Some questions will be on your screen here in just a second. So get ready and dive in together. Yeah.
So at the time of this recording, I am 44. How old are you?
I'm 33.
33. And for the record, I have more hair than a 33-year-old.
Win for Jesse.
It's not going great, though.
TikTok, man. Just wait to arrive.
That's exactly right. So, at 44, it feels like the years kind of just go super fast. And you talk to people who are 54, 64, like it doesn't seem to ever slow down. And we just get further and further and further away from the years where we were 2, 3, 4, 5, and we almost forget what it's like to be just a kid. One of the biggest gifts I think about being in God's family is that he constantly, God our Father constantly wants to keep us back in this place in the best possible ways of being just his kid. And there's a verse in Galatians 4 that describes that. We just talked about verse 6 earlier, where the Spirit in us cries out, Abba, Father. And then verse 7 says this: so you are no longer a slave, but you are God's child. And then since you are a child, God has made you also an heir. So not only do we get to be just his kids, we get the benefit of everything and everything it means to be a part of his family. We get his presence now, we get heaven later, and we get to enjoy it all as just his son or his daughter.
It's a good gift. Yeah. It's a way better picture than the striving and trying to make it work we've been talking about.
Says that. He says you are do you in verse 9, do you wish to be enslaved all over again?
Yeah. I'd hope I get to this point and go,
how many of us have said as adults, boy, wasn't it? What don't you remember summers? Summers were so great where you just didn't have anything. He's kind of saying that same thing.
Like, man, I wish I had snow days.
Do you want to be enslaved all over again? Of course not. Let's just be his kids.
Just be his kids. It's great. Thanks for joining us for week 4. Again, invite you back for week 5 where we get to learn all about fruit and flesh. If you're like, I don't know what that's about, great. Jump back in next week and we're going to talk all about it. Have a great week. See you soon.